Fearing freedom and the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher with Mark the Millennials and the Millennial. Joining me today is Garrick Ross. How's it going?
Happy Friday.
Yeah, how's Jersey?
I don't know. I haven't been there since the pandemic started.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And of course, Adam Couture, our producer, and our assistant producer, Christopher Hopkins. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good.
There we go. So he's not even mic'd, and he sounds pretty good.
Fast, great sound quality there.
Absolutely.
From the sound guy.
So the podcast is called Fearing Freedom. And of course, the dumbest bill in America. We have really something funny to talk about. And these are the two dumbest county executives in America. And one is from New York, Nassau County. We've talked about this lady before. Okay, we've talked about her before. County Executive Curran of Long Island, New York. She's in Nassau County. And because we've talked about her before, we're gonna have a brief clip of her first, and then we're gonna have the next dumbest county executive. He's probably actually dumber. His name is Mark Elrich. He's the County Executive of Montgomery County, Maryland. But first up, County Executive Curran of Nassau County, New York, thought it was necessary to explain to you how to play tennis in an era of the pandemic. So she figured that, you know what, people are too stupid to play the ultimate social distancing sport known as tennis.
The ultimate social distancing
So therefore, they need the government to give them an explanation, and it all went downhill from there, which is why she's one of the dumbest county executives in America, but we've now found one dumber. First up, let's listen to County Executive Curran from Long Island, New York, Nassau County. Here she is.
Every player, unless they're from the same household, has to bring their own tennis balls so that you don't touch other people's tennis balls with your hands. You can kick their balls, but you can't touch them.
Yes, so that's what she went there. You can kick their balls, you just can't touch them.
Oof.
And that's how you play tennis carefully and successfully and safely in the era of the pandemic.
Sometimes press conferences go great and public appearances are great for your profile, and other times you have no business ever being on the mic. And
I know that you're from Jersey, but she's from New York, so you know it's all the same.
Yeah, you could say that. I would differentiate a little bit. You know, Long Island out there is not a place that we're particularly fond of.
Yes, it's true.
There's a little bit of an interstate rivalry per se.
Yeah, there is. It's true.
But no, you know, I know how to play tennis, and I think anybody who shows up to a tennis court knows how to play tennis. It's not like people showed up one day and said, "Oh, let's try this new sport and let's try to do it safely." And it's also like, I don't know, man. Word choice, vet your speech. Politics is hard, I know, but
government must really fear telling us that we can be free and that we are free, which of course is the name of the podcast, Fear Freedom, because they're basically saying you're too dumb to know how to play tennis. And therefore, we need to tell you the proper way to do it. And since the one thing you do share in tennis are tennis balls when you play, that you shouldn't touch the other person's tennis balls, but it's okay to kick them. And it's like, look, if I want to touch the other person's tennis balls, first of all, when you're playing tennis, I'm really sure you're not concerned about whose balls they are because you're playing with the same set of balls. And, you know, who cares whether you're touching them or not because you're going to wash your hands afterwards anyway.
She's really grasping for straws there. Or, you know, some might say she's grasping for balls, but, you know.
So get this, County Executive Mark Elrich, he's from Montgomery County, Maryland. He is the Montgomery County Executive.
It is the immediate suburb outside of Washington, D.C.
Well said.
It is the second richest county in the United States.
It's certainly up there as one of the richest counties. And why is it one of the richest counties in the United States?
Because everybody who works in government either lives there or they live in Alexandria, Virginia. And there's a lot of...
they either live in Northern Virginia or suburban Maryland or D.C.,
Yep.
They being federal employees. Montgomery County seems to have kind of, you know, a disproportionate number of those
Yes.
Federal employees living in their county.
And federal employees make a good bit of money.
They make a lot of money. In fact, the median household income in Montgomery County is in excess of $100,000.
It's like $109,000 a year annually.
That's incredible, right?
Incredible.
And that's because a third of the residents in Montgomery County, Maryland, 1/3 of them either work for state, local, or federal government,
Yes.
or work also for nonprofits.
Yes.
In other words, They work for...
There's a lot of big companies that are also there that work with the government, make a boatload of money on the government's back.
Absolutely. Oh, it's lots of crony capitalism in that particular county for sure. So this county executive, Mark Elrich, that is the county that he is presiding over. You know, 1 million people, very wealthy primarily because that government is the driver of income.
Yes.
And people are extremely well paid in government, which of course is an issue that many people in the private sector have had for many years. And they only have it primarily when, of course, the economy is really bad, like it is now for the private sector. And so why does this matter? Well, because Mark Elrich is clearly one of the dumbest county executives in America because he has a press conference.
Which, if you haven't picked up on it yet, press conferences can go very wrong.
Just like Nassau County.
Yes.
And his press conference had lots of hecklers because he's talking about how to reopen Montgomery County and basically saying things that are obvious to everyone, except that the way he tries to reopen it makes no sense.
Yeah, he's also naturally like one of the most smug individuals I've ever listened to. When
for
you
sure.
listen to him talk, he just sounds like he couldn't care less about what you have to say about anything. And even out of this context, like I've heard some things from him just because of our proximity, but smug guy all around.
So I want you to listen to this. So Elrich starts out his press conference by talking about what can open and to what extent it can open. So keep in mind, it's not just that it's opening, but they may not be able to open at full scale. Listen very carefully to this clip. Here it is.
Personal services, hair salons, and barbershops open for hair only. No haircuts, no manicures, none of the, no pedicures. Houses of worship open. No.
So those are private business people who are there, who are very upset because they can't operate their businesses. What you just heard from one of the dumbest county executives in America, overseeing one of the richest counties in America, by the way, is you heard him say, barbershops and hair salons can open, but you can't get your hair cut.
Yeah, he says for hair only, but you can't get your hair cut, your nails done, or anything. It's just like, what does that even mean?
You can go there, I guess, to have your hair blown.
If you want to hang
have
out,
it styled,
we'll hang out in the hair cutter
but
place.
you can't get your hair cut.
Good Lord.
And so it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because what is the difference between using a pair of scissors and touching the person's hair with your own hands and a blow dryer? I don't understand what the difference is.
I don't even, honestly, I'm inclined to think he made a mistake. And if he made a mistake, that's just poor planning. I mean, poor execution. You're a leader of a big county in a global pandemic, and you can't get it together and give people like straightforward advice.
But also you don't trust people.
Yeah.
See, I fundamentally trust people,
Yeah.
but this county executive apparently doesn't trust the 1 million plus people in his county to be able to figure out how to play it safe on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly you can talk about how to play it safe, but to mandate that you can't get a haircut, but you can still open your haircutting business or your salon, dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And then he says houses of worship can open, but they can only worship outside. Well, then they're not opened. If you can't open, I mean, so...
How does that work? Also, for anybody who might not know the geographical context of Montgomery County, it's not exactly ripe with open spaces everywhere. And
It's not.
You know,
It's urban. It's very
It's
urban.
a very
Densely
urban
urban.
and densely populated place. So, like, if you have a church, chances are you got the church and that's your property. So I don't know where, you know, every church is supposed to go find massive open spaces to hold sermons at, but...
And then he says, non-essential retail can open, but it's curbside only. So wait a minute. So your retail clothing store, if you're a small business person, can open in Montgomery County.
But for curbside
But you can't
only.
go inside and try on the pants
So that means
or
what
the
you
dress.
have to do is scroll their website and then order what you want and then go pick it up. But at that rate, I'm just going to order online and have it delivered to my house.
Well, I just have this vision of, and I want County Executive Elrich, I have a challenge for him. I want him to go to one of his local stores where it's locally owned, a small dress shop or a small men's clothing store, or maybe they sell both men's and women's clothes, to go there and say, you know what, I'd like to buy a pair of jeans, let's say. So they bring the jeans out, Is he supposed to try them on outside at the curb? I mean, is that what we're talking? Because really, you can't go inside, is what he's saying.
Yes,
How stupid is that?
But here's the thing, Mark.
The whole point of bricks and mortar retail is to try it out, to look at it, to touch it, to see if you're interested in it. And of course, your generation then goes online and buys it cheaper. I know that about you guys. But boomers actually do like like retail.
I go into brick and mortar sometimes. It's easier, like, for depending on what I'm buying. It's easier
Certainly
for me to
for
go
clothes.
in person.
Certainly for clothing. Clothing never works out very well when you buy it online. At least for me. But
Yeah,
maybe
there's certain things, like if I'm looking at, whatever the example is irrelevant. But the point being, sometimes it's easier to go inside. But also think about it this way: you can't go to that local owned clothing store, but nothing's stopping me from walking over to Target and going into their clothing aisle and buying all the same stuff.
And try it on.
Yeah, so
and go in their restaurant.
So let's screw the local business owner who owns a store and this is their prime source of income. But kudos to the big supplier who's got big lobbyists who are able to influence what's open and what's closed.
Mark Elrich, once again, Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich, the dumbest, without question, one of the dumbest county executives in America, that believes that it's okay to go to a bricks and mortar clothing store and ask for a pair of jeans. They bring them out to the curb and you try them on, and or you don't try them on and you pay for them. No one's going to do that. As you just said, Garrick, they're going to go to Target.
I'm going to order I'm going to go to a store that's open and I can go in, or I'm going to order it online.
Order it online, and you're going to send it back and forth until you finally find a pair that fits, which is something I don't like to do because I hate having to rebox something up. That's why I like to try on actual clothes, and I think other people are that way too.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a percentage of our population that's willing to do that. And then once you try it on, maybe you will indeed go online and see if you can get it cheaper. But here's this. We have another clip from County Executive Mark Elrich of Montgomery County. And this clip is just ridiculous. And you have to listen really closely because at the very beginning of the clip, someone says something like to one of the protesters, they say, "Oh, well, you don't want to be safe." And the protester goes, "Well, you can be sheep if you want to." And they're just yelling at this guy because, and then the county executive starts to argue with the crowd. He starts to argue with them, and which is a big no-no in politics. You don't argue with constituents, especially when it comes to their first of all, but especially when it comes to their well-being and their ability to open up the businesses that they've sacrificed everything for. Here is the clip.
They're trying to save our lives. Listen, they're a bunch of sheep. Trump 2020.
Bunch of sheep.
So, to go on with this, I want to open up as much as everybody else does. I do not understand why people think I don't understand why anybody thinks anybody wants to lock down. There is nothing in locking down that makes anybody happy. I don't get to do any of the things that I want to do.
Shut down bureaucrats. You think it's healthy for all these children to be stuck in their homes? What about people that have mental health issues? What about people that are committing suicide? What about domestic abuse? Do you think that your cure is worse, is more important than this virus? Do you think it's better? What about important procedures?
So that's a whole bunch of local business people going off on Mark Elrich, County Executive of Montgomery County, Maryland, and Mark Elrich saying, "Well, I don't get to do the things that I want to do." I have a message from Mark Elrich. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It never was.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't get to do the things that you want to, then don't be county executive. Maybe we can get someone in there who's a lot more competent to govern this more than 1 million people in Montgomery County, who clearly are. It's one of the most educated counties in America. Let me just say this: it's one of the most educated counties in America, Garrett.
Yeah.
And if the individuals in this county cannot figure out how to safely go outside and safely shop, or if they're high risk, don't go outside, don't go shop, stay at home. If they can't make up their own minds, this most educated county in America, or one of the most educated, then you know what? There's no hope for you. You deserve Mark Elrich.
Yeah, one of the annoying things about political polarization is guys like Mark Elrich, all they have to do is just have their name on a ballot and it's a guaranteed re-election.
Because of the Democrat.
There's a D or an R next to their name in the area they live in. It's like, you don't have to be a Democrat or Republican. You don't have to elect a Republican instead of the D, but I mean, get somebody else in there. I mean,
by the way,
put a primary challenger or something.
Garrick, do you know that County Executive Mark Elrich, he's also saying that there's a budget deficit in one of America's richest counties.
Yes.
Where, of course, a third of the people work for nonprofits or for the federal government, state government, or local government combined.
Which also already taxes you to high heaven.
And what does he want to do?
raise taxes.
He wants
and
to
get more
raise
from,
property taxes
and
during a pandemic.
How about you cut some spending, Mark?
What an idiot this
How about
guy
you
is.
cut some spending?
I mean, I feel like he and Nassau County executive, the lady that talked about the tennis balls, I think they should play tennis together because, let's just stop there. So,
hold on, one more thing though.
Yes, one more thing, says the guy from New Jersey. I got one more thing for you.
So, Mark Elrich, not Mark you, other Mark, he is apparently concerned about the health and well-being of people, and that somehow by opening up, these brick and mortar shops and allowing people to migrate in public spaces, that somehow there's going to be this big escalation of cases. And to that I say, you're just wrong. Look at the 13 states in the United States that have basically allowed people to go into, reopening processes and have slowly and gradually started opening things up. You would have expected an immediate uptick in the amount of cases in these 13 states, but typically the numbers have shown that in these states where reopening has occurred, that their numbers are going down. And it's almost like that there's some kind of health advantage to not being stuck inside with people.
Vitamin D is a very good thing.
But here's the thing, where New York City, 70% of their cases were from people staying in
Staying
enclosed
indoors.
spaces together. So one sick person gets into these spaces, and this is where your cases are coming. Nursing homes,
right.
places where people are in close proximity for prolonged periods of time.
There's also a lag time in the data. And by the way, this includes in one of America's richest counties, Montgomery County, Maryland. The lag time is such that you might be getting data that is 2 weeks old because for a couple of reasons. One is it's taking time to get to you.
It takes time to test.
And it takes time to test. And the other thing is, as you are testing more people, by definition, you're going to have more people testing positive.
Especially with a lot of these are not asymptomatic cases.
That's exact. And many of these individuals may not really be sick. They may just be testing positive. But of course, Mark Elrich, what he's saying is, well, so many people are testing positive. Well, it's because you're testing more people. But meanwhile, you've already flattened the curve. He has. They flattened the curve in Montgomery County. But he won't let you get your haircut when you go into a salon or to a barbershop. And he won't let you worship in your church or your mosque or your temple. And lastly, he won't let you go inside the retail store and buy anything. Got to wait for them to bring it out to you at the curb.
Good luck, Montgomery County.
That's right. Good luck, Montgomery County. You deserve Mark Elrich because you elected him.
Yep.
So next up, we have Twitter, the ultimate Twitter, war between the President of the United States and also with other, quite frankly, candidates, mostly Republican, where Twitter is now deciding that they're not just going to shadow ban people, but they're also going to fact check them. And explain what shadow ban means, Garrick. It's a generational
From my
thing.
understanding, shadow banning is when a social media organization, so they have algorithms that naturally promote certain, videos based on activity on the video, and the more people interact with the video, the more likely it is to be shown on other people's feeds. But like, if there's a video that they think is, not in the public interest, or it's not even in the public interest, they just don't like the video, then they'll kind of put a mask on it that keeps it.
You can't see it. It bans it. Essentially, it's still there.
It's still there, but it's not promoted like the way it would be, or they change the metrics on it and things like that.
For the most part, with Facebook, you just can't see it.
Yeah.
And Facebook says this content is no longer available.
Yeah.
Twitter, of course, probably just deletes it because that's typically what they've done. But with the President of the United States,
they'll leave it up. So they'll leave it up on each person's account, and it'll be posted. But how. Say you follow somebody, I'll use somebody that I read somewhat frequently, Dave Rubin. He's a classic liberal scholar,
and he's a critical thinker.
Yeah, he'll post something on Facebook, and it's on his timeline is there. But anybody who follows him won't see it on the timeline. It just doesn't appear, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why something like that would happen.
Interesting. So Trump tweeted that mail-in voting is something that often ends up in corruption and fraud, which, by the way, it does, especially when it's mass mail-in voting, which is what the Democrats want during the era of the pandemic. They want everyone in every state, no matter where you live, to vote by mail.
Yes.
And so Twitter decided that it wasn't going to take down Trump's tweet about mail-in voting and how he objects to it.
Misleading.
Instead, they said that his vote his mail-in vote claim was misleading, and they flagged it and put actually on there that
Here's where you can get more information.
here's where you can get more information, because clearly the President of the United States is not telling you the truth about mail-in voting. In the meantime, this very month, right, just a couple of days ago, in Paterson, New Jersey, your home state, what a surprise, in Paterson, New Jersey,
man, what are you trying to
the
say?
NAACP leader calls for Paterson, New Jersey to cancel their mail-by-vote program because of corruption, because they just had mail-in voting
And it didn't work?
it didn't work, and there's massive corruption. We have a clip on this. Please listen carefully. It is worth listening to this because it completely goes against what Twitter just did.
Yeah.
And it just shows you the idiots at Twitter, how they don't read anything. They were just basically, I don't know, where do these kids go
There was
that
another
work
one.
at Twitter?
There was another-
Where do they go to college?
Oh, I don't know.
Because what are they being taught? They're not being taught to be critical thinkers about the fact that when you mail in something, the chances of fraud are through the roof.
Oh, I mean, it all depends. I mean, what is the name of the Twitter seat? Jack Dorsey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jack Dorsey's mission statement, and they're all, bound to obey it. And so it all starts at the top. Leadership begins with accountability, and you also have to know where the leadership comes from. We can blame the guy who heads a certain department down the line, but it's ultimately Jack Dorsey's decision, especially when you're dealing with things like the president. You think, Joe Schmo in marketing has the right to kibosh Trump's Twitter? No, that's all on Jack Dorsey.
So let's say this. Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter, you need to listen to this clip from Paterson, New Jersey, NAACP leader, not a Republican leader, the NAACP leader who is concerned
By the way, Paterson
about,
is a very Democratic area.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is, because it's in northern New Jersey, and I'm sure it's nothing but Democrats there. Here is the clip. Listen carefully.
Invalidate the election, let's do it again.
Reverend Kenneth Clayton heads the Paterson NAACP. He says with 1 in 5 votes disqualified and growing concerns about voter fraud, he says this local council election was not fair.
These kind of acts make people not want to vote anymore. They feel disenfranchised, disconnected, think that their votes don't count, and that's not fair to people.
Examples, meet activist Ernest Rucker. He says he never got a ballot in the mail, but election records show someone voted using his ballot.
I was robbed at the right to vote or not vote. I was disenfranchised.
This is New Jersey's Deputy Assembly Speaker.
My vote and my wife and 2 sons' votes did not count in this past municipal election.
He says no explanation yet if there were questions about signature matches, but his vote as of now among the 20% cast aside.
That's how you disenfranchise voters. I mean, that's the bottom line.
In addition to apparent problems with the vote count, News 4 has shown how stacks of ballots were left scattered in building lobbies. There's social media of a single voter handling numerous votes. And postal officials say bundles of ballots were found in mailboxes in Paterson and even in another town. 2 candidates who lost won by just 6 votes, angry and calling for a recount and criminal investigation.
So there you have the losers in the election in Paterson, New Jersey, and one of the winners calling for a new election because the mail-in voting was so corrupt, because they found bundles of mail-in votes in some locations where they didn't belong. In other locations, people voted for others who apparently don't live there. And you have elected officials who are in I think the deputy assembly, General Assembly leader in the state of New Jersey saying it was corrupt, it has to be redone.
Yeah.
But according to Twitter, according to Jack Dorsey at Twitter,
mail-in voting is
mail-in
just
voting,
fine. Yeah.
you just find the facts according to Twitter, because mail-in voting doesn't exist. Just go through Twitter's website, Twitter's newsfeed, and we'll show you all the right places to look.
Yeah, it's, this is the issue that I brought up the other day when we were talking about this, is how do you determine what facts are, actually correct? I'm not going to say that there's no universal truths, but often in life, a lot of things that we view as facts are, really just structural opinions that have a merit of credence to them, but can frequently change as time goes on and more facts become, available to us. And so how do we continue to try to police things when we don't even know if what we're policing them with is fair and accurate? Especially,
and well, look who the policeman is. This guy, Yoel Roth, who is one of the policemen at Twitter,
yeah.
who actually polices their site, tweets out I'm just saying, we fly over those states that voted for a racist tangerine for a reason. This is what he tweeted. He works at Twitter, and he's one of their fact checkers.
Good Lord. You know, at least try to hide it.
It's impossible. I mean, it just shows you that something needs to be done. He also, this same guy, Yoel Roth of Twitter, he puts out, let me see. Yes, the person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. I mean, there are numerous tweets that this guy puts out there. He's obviously, sick in the head and not very bright. Because he was probably taught at some, left-wing college, like Berkeley or something like that, and completely and utterly brainwashed. But that just seems to be the way it is.
And this is the danger that you run into. Like, I understand that people are, always looking for somebody to make arbitration as to whether, because the president does say some things that you look at and you're like, what did you just say? But when you get into policing speech, you run into these issues where it's like, do the people who police other people not have their own inherent biases? And, somebody like him, he does. And I'm not going to subscribe to him all the time.
According to millennials, should speech be policed?
As a demographic as a whole, yes. That's what a lot of people...
You think speech should be policed?
No. I'm saying it's a demographic. When you say millennials,
You think millennials believe...
I'm giving you the millennial perspective. Okay. By and large, millennials as a whole believe that speech should be policed and that, there is such thing as hate speech and that hate speech should be outlawed or even regulated. And... do I? No, I think it's...
Yeah, that's where I disagree.
It's difficult.
I got to stop you there. So hate speech, right? Hate speech is a catch-all phrase, right? Obviously, I want to make it really clear. I don't use hate speech, but here's the problem. Hate speech is...
What is hate speech?
What is hate speech? Number one. And number two, when you see hate speech and you know what it looks like and you hear it, and we're not going to say it because we know the words, we know the speech. The fact of the matter is that the way we learn as people about how certain speech is just not acceptable is by hearing certain idiots say it. And so they say it or they post it on social media and you say to yourself, this guy is an idiot, I'm going to unfriend him. Okay, I'm going to block him on social media. I do that all the time, by the way. But the idea that it should be banned, no, because you can't ban speech. We're based on free speech, including speech that is incredibly uncomfortable and speech that's incredibly offensive and speech that is just downright wrong.
Yeah, because here's the thing. If you want to police speech and you want to ban it and you want to make it regulated, there has to be somebody who does the regulation. And this is the conundrum that I always laugh at when we get into this topic, because the only ultimate arbiter of speech would have to be the government. The courts and the government would have to be the ones who are doing it. You can't just, have private people.
But look who the arbiter is now. The arbiter now is social media.
Yeah, and they're a private company doing their thing. But it's like if my generation wanted to make it criminal, like the way, or like, bad and make it, punishable through society and things like that, the government would have to lay out some regulatory guidelines that determines that these things are bad. But it's also, if you are skeptical of Trump and the idea of government like him in the White House, would you want him being the one who regulates your speech? Because this is the conundrum that I get, that I don't understand how people get to this point, is like,
but government doesn't run social media sites.
No, but they would have to put the guideline out to regulate them.
True, very true. Very true. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but Twitter also has shadow banned, if you will, hiding Trump's tweet saying that there is glorified violence in the city of Minneapolis after a police officer very clearly murdered an African-American man, while it appears to me 3 other police officers looked on.
Yeah, and I think, Twitter flagged his tweet the other day and said it possibly incited violence, but because of the interest of the public space, they were going to leave it up, but it had like a view click, so you had to click through it in order for it to be visible to you.
In order to see it. And
it was like a warning. They flagged with a warning.
I just want to make something clear. I think that it's the job of the President of the United States to be able to talk to people in a calming way when something like this happens.
I thought that tweet did not do that.
And that tweet did not do that. I agree with you. But the thing is, he should have the opportunity to say what he wants to say, to write what he wants to say, even though in this particular case, I thought it was incredibly inappropriate. What he should have been talking about is, because he was talking about how there was violence after the fact and people were burning down their communities, which of course is wrong. You shouldn't be burning down your community, the very place where you live, because and you're thinking that justifies, you're justified to do that because of what happened. Unfortunately, during these very difficult times, what the president really should be doing instead is talking about why what has happened in Minneapolis, why we have communities who have intergenerational poverty, and how we can fix that. And at the same time, more importantly at the moment, is fix a police department which clearly has a very serious issue.
Yeah.
And obviously, the issue is that a police officer very clearly and obviously committed murder on camera.
Yes.
On camera.
Yeah.
Without question.
So, yeah, that's pretty well put, Mark, actually.
It's sad. It's sad, but that we even have to talk this way. But you know what? There are bad cops, and you know what? There are bad cops in the FBI, and we found that out.
Yeah.
Bad cops in the FBI who actually were engaged in a coup d'etat of the President of the United States, and which they would kill democracy. All right? They would literally kill democracy had they been successful. And in Minneapolis, we have a series, people are saying, well, that particular cop committed the crime. I got to tell you something. Yeah, he did, because his knee was on this gentleman's
For 9
neck.
minutes.
But the fact of the matter is that there were 3 other police officers who watched
and didn't do anything.
And did nothing.
Yeah.
And
it's your responsibility. I mean, it's in your oath to serve and protect, and none of that was serving or protecting anybody.
And so Donald Trump has decided, the President of the United States has decided that he is going to sign an executive order to weaken the social media companies. And by weaken, they are monopolies, let's face it. Social media companies are monopolies. We're talking about YouTube, we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Twitter, and to a certain extent, Google is too, because it's a search engine. And they have, without question, you could go to Yahoo if you wanted to, but between the two of them, it's a duopoly, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
So Trump was signing his executive order and speaking about the monopolistic social media companies and the fact that they should not be deciding what you get to see. They should not be deciding what is fact or not fact. That's what makes critical thinkers. You should be deciding that. So, having said that, we have a series of 3 clips, and here is Trump with clip number 1.
The choices that Twitter makes when it chooses to suppress, edit, blacklist, shadow, ban, are editorial decisions, pure and simple. They're editorial decisions. In those moments, Twitter ceases to be a neutral public platform and they become an editor with a viewpoint. And I think we can say that about others also, whether you're looking at Google, whether you're looking at Facebook, and perhaps others.
So if you are a social media platform and you are allowing people to post anything they want to post, obviously not pornography, and obviously things that don't promote human trafficking. I mean, obviously we have a bunch of laws that apply to them already, and they are already following those laws, except that you've decided on just the political side of things as a social media company that you are going to editorialize, meaning that you are deciding what people can and cannot see, and you are deciding what is or is not fact. Then you are, by definition, in my mind, you are not just an editorial board of like a newspaper, but in addition to that, you are donating money to a certain cause because you are helping one side versus another. It wouldn't matter in normal times if they weren't monopolies, but they're monopolies. Thoughts?
This is a lofty topic. This is a very legally centered topic because you have to kind of understand what Rule 230 is and how it applies and where it came from. But from my understanding, what Rule 230 does is it basically carves out an exception to social media companies and says that similar to editorial boards and things like that, you can post opinions, but you can't be sued for them because you're basically just a platform for people to publish things on you. I think I understand what the president's going for when he puts in a rule like this, or he's making a push for something like this, because undoubtedly I can see his gripes where, social media platforms are trying to police certain types of speech, and it often pertains to him, and I think the president often takes these things very personally. But as somebody who is anti-speech police, I also am skeptical of the president's order because I could see it being very counterproductive to the idea of speech too. Because
well, here's the thing: the Federal Election Commission, which governs federal elections, and the local state election boards in all the 50 states, they should have the right to sue, which I think this executive order would allow. They should have the right to sue all the social media companies and say, you know what, the fact that you took down this particular elected official's post just because you didn't like it or because you're determining what is or isn't fact, because you've done that, that is a de facto contribution to their opponent.
Well, do you believe...
And you need to report to the local election board, and you need to report that that is an in-kind contribution.
Well, do you believe that...
That's what they're doing.
Twitter or Facebook are public spaces? Or an extension of the public space?
I think that these are private companies that have put themselves out there as message boards, or boards where you would just put information up, and that's how they started.
Right.
And what's happened is they've decided just in the area of politics that they are putting their foot on the pedal of one side versus another, and clearly that's the case with Twitter. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, because we can document that, that's quite obvious. Interestingly
Facebook,
enough,
on the other hand, disagrees with what Twitter is doing.
Democrats think that Facebook is a very Republican organization. I would disagree.
Honestly, I just really think it's down to which demographic uses which one. I mean, I typically think older people tend to use Facebook.
Look,
older people compared to me use Facebook versus my generation.
I've had Facebook shadow ban stuff that I've posted. And they shadow banned it because their so-called fact checkers decided that they didn't like the political statement. I mean, it's no doubt about it.
Oh, viewing community guidelines. I see a lot of
nonsense.
They're kind of funny.
So here's Donald Trump speaking about Twitter on their fact check policy. Here's the second of the three clips. Here it is.
One egregious example is when they try to silence views that they disagree with by selectively applying a fact check, F-A-C-T, fact check. What they choose to fact check and what they choose to ignore or even promote is nothing more than a political activism group or political activism, and it's inappropriate.
Do you know that political activism has to be reported to the Federal Election Commission? And political activism also has to be reported to the local election boards. And the reason it does is because there is a de facto contribution that you are making to a campaign, especially on social media platforms, whereby they would be charging you for that otherwise. They would be. Right now, Twitter doesn't currently they don't allow you to advertise political campaigns on Twitter, but yet they're deciding what you can and can't see and what is and isn't fact, which is the same thing as putting your foot on the pedal of one side versus another, which means you are giving money to one side or the other, without question. Thoughts?
Oof. It's so wrapped in legalese that it's really hard to.
The First Amendment isn't a legalese issue though. The First Amendment is.
Well, when you get into things like the regulation of private companies versus free spaces and where people can and can't talk and to what degree they can talk, this is what I think you're getting into more than just the First Amendment, because I think everybody has the right to say what they want out loud, but where does that extend to? And I inherently just believe that it's easiest.
But this isn't talking
that
out loud.
Everything is absolute, and that if you want to go on a message board and say what you want, then you can, but you're going to have public repercussions. But I don't necessarily think you should have post repercussions within reason. Like you said, there's the legal aspects of things where you can't go on and say, I'm going to come to your house and kill you, or that I'm selling people, come buy them, because that is, out of the public welfare and detrimental.
They're already
to
policing that on the social media networks.
Yeah, and that's detrimental to people's livelihood.
We're talking about just the political statements that are put on social media. We're limiting to just that.
Yep.
And one of the foundational points of our democracy is the ability to have free speech and not fear repercussions and not fear the fact that it's going to be quashed in some way by the government or by some monopolistic organization that decides what you get to hear or see. So the President of the United States, here's the final clip, he literally says what you just said, Garrick, the right to free speech must be upheld. And here's the clip.
Therefore, today I'm signing an executive order to protect and uphold the free speech and rights of the American people. Currently, social media giants like Twitter receive an unprecedented liability shield based on the theory that they're a neutral platform, which they are not an editor with a viewpoint. My executive order calls for new regulations under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act to make it that social media companies that engage in censoring or any political conduct will not be able to keep their liability shield. That's a big deal. They have a shield. They can do what they want. They have a shield. They're not going to have that shield.
So they're no longer going to have a shield that they can stand behind to say that you can't sue us anymore because we're not really putting our foot on the pedal of one political side or the other. We're just kind of like watching it and letting it all be put up there on these quote unquote message boards, just to use kind of a generic term. Not true. Not true.
It is so much easier for companies like this to just let people talk and post and have their viewpoints and let them be what they are, rather than having to engage in this kind of long, extended battle that is ultimately going to result in this. And this is why it's important to just kind of understand that there is a First Amendment and the free speech shouldn't be abridged. And that's because, when you start policing speech, you run into issues where you're not quite sure whether you're right or wrong. And like the instance with the mail-in voting, it can quickly backfire on you. And when you get somebody like Trump who isn't going to take it, there are consequences and you're experiencing them.
Well, there are consequences. Look, I have no problems if there is left-wing information on social media. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what I do? I ignore it.
Yeah.
I
read it, I take it for what it is, and I move on.
But for some reason, there's this issue of the left where when they see something that is conservative and is posted on social media, they can't just let it go. They have to find a way of preventing people from seeing it. And I'm wondering, what kind of mentality is it on the left that so fears your ideas that they're afraid that others might see it? And that is really kind of where we are in America now. And
yeah,
it's
people
a very
don't want to have a
scary
discourse
place.
or a dialogue about the conversation being had. If Twitter was smart, they would just be like, I don't even know that they have to post it on Trump's page, but like, let's have a robust discussion about the merits and the pitfalls of mail-in voting. Not, this is wrong and you shouldn't have it up here, or this is sensitive material and you shouldn't view it.
And so one of the interesting things is, and the podcasters are going to love this, so YouTube also took down a post, but it was an entire video that they took down. And in this particular case, YouTube took a video down that was produced by Michael Moore, who is a left-wing, by the way, producer, film producer. Not a very good one, but he nevertheless does produce left-wing films that have been commercially successful. And his left-wing film is called Planet of the Humans. And the reason YouTube took down his post, which was a video of the movie, is that it critically questions renewable energy. That is to say, it talks about renewable energy in a way that looks at it critically and says, does it cost more in terms of carbon and energy to be able to mine all the stuff that you need to make the renewable energy resources like solar and wind than it would otherwise? And his conclusion is, yeah, it does a lot of environmental damage. And apparently, I'm going to read from the article by, it's The Verge, and it says, the controversial film Planet of the Humans, produced by Michael Moore, was taken down from YouTube because of a copyright infringement claim, which really isn't the main issue. The complaint was filed by photographer Toby Smith, who is alarmed that his work was used in a film that he doesn't support. So he's saying, well, because a couple of clips from his film, The Guardian reports this, by the way, he's saying that Toby Smith's saying that since a couple clips from his film were used in Michael Moore's Planet of the Humans film, because of that, and he doesn't agree with the thesis of Planet of the Humans, therefore you shouldn't be able to see the video at all because he's afraid that you might be convinced.
Well, this is going to backfire on you, my guy, because if I know Michael Moore's going to run around banging pots and pans saying you all should pay attention and that I'm being censored by the big government or whatever.
Oh, my God, yes.
And I'm sure it's going to drum up more attention, so more people are going to want to see it. I did not know Michael Moore produced a video. I did not know Michael Moore's video got taken down. But now I'm quite interested to see what Michael Moore has to say on the issue.
It really is. It's interesting because of the fact that a couple of the clips that Michael Moore used from this gentleman's film had to do with the mining operations that were necessary in order to make...
Yeah, you want an electric car? Do you want to know how they make the photovoltaic batteries and things like that they put in your car? There's 2 mines in the world, and they have to bulldoze half of an Amazon rainforest to get to one of them.
Yeah, so yeah, it's because those batteries, the lithium-ion batteries, are actually, they actually have to mine the lithium.
Yeah.
And there's an enormous amount of
undertaking
and a lot of environmental damage to mine lithium.
Yeah.
And so you're mining it, and then you're doing damage in one part of the world.
Do you know what they do with wind turbines when the turbine's propellers go out?
When the blades are gone, what happens to the blades?
They just throw them in a landfill.
Because they can't be recycled?
Can't be recycled.
Because what are they made of? Like graphite or something like really unique?
Sometimes I've seen like some unique thing, but also I thought a lot of it was some kind of plastic alternative or derivative.
Yeah, it has to be obviously incredibly strong to withstand those winds to make sure that it doesn't break. Because obviously if it broke, it would kill someone if it fell down or the wind caught it in the air.
Yeah, those things are huge.
And you're right. What do you do with it when you're finished?
What do you do with the lithium batteries when you're done with them?
Well, according to Tesla, they have their facility is going to recycle them. I'm not entirely sure
how that works.
If that is really the case, or if some of it finds itself in a landfill somewhere in Nevada in a desert, where they're actually making the current batteries. So
yeah, I mean, this is one of the realizations I think people are going to come to, or should come to, is that there's externalities for everything, and not everything is a perfect. There is no such thing as perfect solutions. You got to make hard choices, and you got to weigh benefits, and But people don't want to see them.
But the talking point here is that these people fear freedom. They
if
are
anything
afraid
that goes against their narrative,
they don't want you to see it. It's not that they don't want to turn off the TV or they don't want to watch that channel. They don't want anyone to watch the channel.
People's
That's
sensitivity
a mental illness.
to speech that
There's
they don't
something
like
wrong.
really does confuse me. I mean, I've never listened to anything that I've disagreed with and thought that it was catastrophic to my existence.
Because you're a critical thinker. You want to learn.
Yeah, and this isn't solely, believe me, I'm not going to say this is solely a left issue. I think there's a lot of people on both sides who get really triggered hearing, things that they don't like and just freaking out about it.
True.
And it's like, this was supposed to be a great society that was founded on the principles of open dialogue, conversation, and discussion on issue. And at the end of the day, even if we disagreed, we were all on the same team hoping to get to the same objective.
And we agreed that free speech was a fundamental principle here in the United States.
Yeah.
And that we shouldn't fear what we see. We shouldn't fear what we hear. If we don't want to hear it or see it, don't look and don't listen.
The free speech movement in the United States, like the one in the mainstream 20th century, started at Berkeley College in California, Berkeley University, Cal Berkeley, whatever it is. And that's the paramount liberal college of today, and it's like those same values that
they don't exist there
once
now.
Expressed aren't there anymore.
They don't want you to see
like,
anything now.
Everything is so, here's the narrative, put things that are into it, and go with it. And a lot of people I see are up in arms about the Trump's executive order, and believe me, I will read about it.
Well, apparently, I just want to
stop
stop you there. Apparently, a lot of people on the left agree with the President of the United States.
Yes, it is a very interesting thing where most Americans are very skeptical of social media companies for certain reasons. I mean, we're very skeptical of big, business, anything.
These are monopolies.
Yeah.
So they should be skeptical of monopolies.
Yeah, they're natural monopolies. I don't know how you make this competitive Twitters, but, that's another point. But, and so some on the left and some on the right are skeptical and some are very on support with this. I guess we'll just really have to see how this works out because...
It's going to be interesting.
I want to see, what legal precedents are set. What is the line going to be? What speech, what actions by companies? Because you saw Mark Zuckerberg came out and he was like...
We don't do what Twitter does.
We don't do what Twitter does, and we don't do it for the exact reason.
Under the bus.
And we don't do it for the exact reason of look what Trump freaked out about.
So I got to stop you there.
So
Facebook shadow bans all the time.
Yeah.
By shadow banning Facebook, what they do is they literally cover up the post, so you can't even see it, and they say this
Well,
content.
they just blame it on the algorithm.
This content is
and
no
then they
longer
fix
available.
It, and then nobody
Well, no, there's
really
nowhere to go at
complains
Facebook.
about it.
Look, I just posted recently on Facebook, and they covered up the post, and they said this content is no longer available. And I presume somebody at Facebook decided, I'm not sure if it was an algorithm or it was an individual. Whatever the case is, it's wrong, right? Because I posted it, I own it. It's my post, I own it. No one's looking at Facebook saying, oh, it's your fault. No, it's mine. Blame me. You don't like it? Come after me.
Sure.
I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. So anyway, so next up, we have the dumbest bill in America. It's the dumbest bill in America. Do we have a lead up to the dumbest bill in America, Mr. Assistant Producer? Here it is.
Dum 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 dum.
So it's the dumbest bill in America, and it's even dumber than the county executive of Montgomery County, Maryland. This dumbest bill in America is one from Virginia, Virginia's governor, and it mandates face masks in Virginia. Mandates them, right? So even if you're perfectly healthy, even if you have had COVID and you have all the antibodies, you still have to wear a mask. No matter where you are, although the governor of Virginia is saying it's only if you're inside. I'm not really sure that's true because the media is saying, well, there were people outside and they weren't wearing face masks. So Governor Ralph Northam put in this mandate that you must wear face masks in Virginia. And meanwhile, he goes to Virginia Beach, the governor does. He visits Virginia Beach. That is the primary resort on the ocean in Virginia, for those of you that aren't familiar with the East Coast. And he doesn't wear a face mask, and he doesn't social distance. Like a bunch of people came up to him and said, "Can we have a picture with you?"
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah, so they say, "Can we have a picture with you?" What he should have said was, "Okay, if he had a face mask."
6 feet apart, people.
But you're supposed to still be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a face mask, and he takes a selfie with them.
He is the king of unattentive irony. It's just everything is over his head. He has, God, it reminds me of the issue back with his blackface thing where he
Explain that. What happened?
He got caught.
But
apparently
what
admitted,
did he do?
So he got admitted to doing the Michael Jackson 90s Halloween costume thing. But then, there was the racist, the racist yearbook picture where he was either...
From med school.
He
was not a child. He was well into adulthood.
He was old.
Yes. Oh, thanks.
Well, 27, Mark, that's way older than me.
Older than you, yes.
Older than me. But, he's in med school in a yearbook, and he's either wearing a Ku Klux Klan robe or he is wearing just the blackest blackface ever done.
Yeah, it's like wearing a Ku Klux Klan hood that you would wear if you were a member of the KKK. Or he was completely and utterly blackface with a hat on in that picture because the two individuals were right next to each other.
We have no idea which one he is, but they're both pretty bad regardless of which one he is.
And he said initially that he was one of them, but he didn't know which one, which is just a bunch of BS.
But they asked him, they were like...
And then he changed his mind,
yeah,
right?
And then he came back later and they were like, Ralph, what do you think about using blackface and stuff? And he's like, well, you got to use a little bit of it because if you don't know, you use shoe polish, it sticks and it doesn't come off, and it's like.
Apparently, he's done this a lot.
Nobody knows that. You are the only one who knows that. A little self-awareness. Or then they asked him, they're like, well, can you do the moonwalk? This is the wildest press conference ever. The questions were uncanny. They were awesome. And then somebody was like, well, since you're dressed up as Michael Jackson, can you do the moonwalk? And he starts looking around the stage because he's on a gym stage or an auditorium stage, and he looks around to find a spot, and he steps aside from the microphone to begin doing the moonwalk. And his wife has to stop him and be like, Ralph, no, you can't do that.
Exactly.
This guy, he is a governor, and I'm sure being a doctor, there's some semblance of IQ in him.
He's such a frat boy, you can tell. He's just a frat boy.
Everything's a joke to him.
And it doesn't make it right, of course, because it's not right, obviously, and it wasn't right then when he did it, and clearly it's not right now, which is what makes it even more ridiculous that when the press asked him, as you said, can you still do the moonwalk? And he's like I'm not sure if I have enough space here, and his wife wife goes, honey, that would be like inappropriate.
Yeah,
You know?
like, honey, you're in the middle of a scandal that might ruin your political career, where prominent political figures are asking you to resign. But let's do the moonwalk. But like, this goes back to the point we're talking about him, face masks and being on the beach. Everything's like,
it
Chris
doesn't
made the
apply
most,
to him.
everything's right over his head.
And he's a Democrat, by the way, for everybody out in past podcast land. The governor, Ralph Northam of Virginia, is mandating face masks, but he doesn't wear them when he goes to Virginia Beach. And equally important, there are signs there that say you also need to social distance when you're there on the boardwalk, which is where he was. Yeah. He didn't social distance. He was right next to his people. So he doesn't follow any of the rules that the rest of us have to follow. And of course, I think we have a clip on that. Did we play that clip already with the media?
No,
okay, so let's play that clip first.
So there was just a lot of backlash when Governor Northam visited the beach on Saturday and was seen not wearing a face mask or standing 6 feet apart from others. Photos of the governor, again, not wearing a face covering, went viral over social media, and many people expressed concerns of Northam not practicing guidelines he actually imposed. You can see him standing close to people, taking pictures with them. One viewer stated on our Facebook page, quote, I thought it was a great move for Governor Northam to go to Virginia Beach yesterday, but for him not to wear a mask on the boardwalk was a huge mistake. That was an opportunity for him to model the expected behavior, and he blew it. I'm very surprised and disappointed. Again, that is what one viewer said on our Facebook page. Governor Northam's office responded to the viral photos on yesterday, and according to the governor's officials, Northam still encourages wearing face coverings when social distancing is not possible. In a statement, Governor Northam's office says, quote, this is an important reminder to always have face coverings in case situations change.
So he would be an expert, the governor would be, on face coverings, because we have a clip from not that long ago when they were talking about some other face coverings that he was wearing. And here is the clip.
The all-consuming firestorm swirling around Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. The governor overwhelmed tonight by calls to resign, the list growing over a racist photo from his medical school yearbook. His own explanations adding to the chaos. The image shows one man in blackface, the other dressed as a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Governor Northam first admitting he is one of the men pictured, then denying he's in the photo. Tonight, the governor is now asking his own cabinet for more time to decide his next move.
Yeah, and his next move was, it wasn't really me, right? Even though it has my name under it, it wasn't really me dressed in the KKK outfit. So my theory is, with the mandating face masks in Virginia, the governor of Virginia didn't want to wear a face mask when he went to Virginia Beach, and he didn't want to, because he couldn't wear the mask that he used to wear when he was in med school. As inappropriate as that is, I mean, it does make you wonder, because, I'm sure people probably make fun of him. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to wear a mask, you should have to wear a mask. And here's the thing. This is really important for Mark and the Millennials to be clear. If you've been tested for COVID and you've been tested with the antibodies and you've been tested negative, whatever the case may be, it should be a guiding principle of whether you should be wearing a mask, or whether you have a fever, whether you're sick, or whether you're young, whether you're elderly, whether you're healthy, whether you're not healthy. Use your best judgment.
There's a place for masks. Look, if you're going to the grocery store and you're in a tight space with a bunch of other people and you're touching goods that other people are going to touch, wear a mask. And you should wear a mask. Should the government make you wear a mask? No, I just don't believe the government should make you do anything. But no, wear a mask. If you wear a mask in the car, I am less sympathetic of you. I think that's
just weird. That's just weird.
Yeah. It makes me
especially
cringe.
if you're alone in the car. If
Yeah.
you're alone in the car,
You're not going to get it through your air vents, guys. Yeah. It's okay.
And if you're alone, if you're with your family in your car, which is usually the case with me, I've got my family in the car with me.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
I'm with them all the time. Why would I wear a mask in the car when I'm with the people I'm with all the time? It's a little late for that.
If you're out running on a trail, you probably shouldn't have to wear a mask because you're running and you're not up in everybody's grill. But, there's a time and place for everything. Use your best judgment, and nobody should really make you have to do anything. Look, and I am so happy to see that, a lot of businesses took it upon themselves to say, hey, if you want to come in, wear a mask. And I think that is excellent, because it should be up to the businesses to decide what they want in their store, because they are a private business and they're well within their rights to do that. But it should be them coming up with these, guidelines for how they want to, treat their store.
And then
not
the customers can decide whether or not they want to go in that store based on the level of carefulness that the business has decided to implement. Because the governor, the individuals can say, look, and we've been saying this for weeks now, why these same people are complaining about, oh my gosh, they're not wearing a mask and their stores should remain closed. Those are the same people, by and large, who are going to Walmart with 200 other people inside the Walmart
What's
and buying
amazing
stuff.
to me, though, is that it took Governor Ralph Northam this long to do this. Am I the only one who's surprised by this? Like, when it came to masks, like, I kind of understood in the first couple of, weeks to months, like the first month or so, I was like, maybe there is something to wearing a mask. Maybe we should all wear a mask for a little while. But here we are in what is it? Today is May 29th, Friday. I'm sure you'll all be seeing this May 30th on Saturday or whatever. And it took Northam 2-3 months to come up with some kind of a mask guidance.
It's absolutely true. That's very true. And by the way, I just want to say this about Governor Ralph Northam. It was absolutely inappropriate, of course, for him to do what he did in his yearbook and to go in blackface. It still blows me away that this guy is still governor of Virginia, because if he were a Republican, he would have been pushed out. But nonetheless, if I saw him on the boardwalk in Virginia Beach, even though I don't live in Virginia, and I happen to see him, I'd say, hey, Governor, there's enough space here to do the moonwalk. Will you do it?
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's it for the dumbest bill in America, mandating face masks in Virginia. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our millennial, Garrick Ross. And, of course, our producer, Adam Coutura. And our assistant producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. See you next time.